We're here this afternoon in the home of Mr. William Austin. He goes by the nickname
Bunk.
Bunk. Everybody calls him Bunk. He's a World War II veteran, has served in the Pacific, and we're honored to be here with he and his dear wife, and appreciate so much him taking his time to share with us some perspectives regarding Veterans Day, what it means to him and what veterans mean to our country. And so, Bunk, if you let me call you that, tell me about how you joined the Marine Corps.
Well, in the first place, I joined when I was a senior in high school. There was some Marines came at our senior year, and I wanted to go into the Marines, so I joined then. But I was 17. I couldn't go until I was 18. So when I turned 18, they were breathing down my neck. So I went to Richmond and was sworn in, and then went from there to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina.
Right.
Went through boot camp there, and we did a lot in boot camp. We close order drill and bayonet and rifle range, and we really learned. The thing of it is, the Marines, you don't get a second chance. I mean, if you get somebody lined up, you better take him out, because the second chance, he's gonna get you.
Right. So when you went through Camp Lejeune, after your basics, how long did it take you to get to the Pacific? Did you go from Camp Lejeune straight to the Pacific?
No, I went to Had Not Point, and
Point.
I stayed there and went through AA training, military training. Now the guns that we trained with, and the guns we took them on a troop train across the country to California. Now they were the same guns that we used on Tinian and Saipan and Marcus. They were the same guns that we trained with. I mean, we used those the whole time we were in the Pacific.
What size gun are we talking about for people who are not familiar?
Well, we're talking, it's a 90 millimeter. It's actually for airplanes. They're about 5 inches round and about 37 inches long.
The shells.
If you stand them up on.
Yeah.
And they had at the end of the nose cone was a firing pin, and you put it in the fuse pot and crank it to either 20 seconds, 30 seconds. What we would do, we would try to keep them up far enough that they couldn't damage the airstrip. But what we would do is put about 3 guns on 50 caliber, 50, where they would go off about 50 seconds after they were fired. And cause a lot of those planes would drop down and try to get a good shot on, you know. So we tried to keep our guns at about 50 seconds, 40 or 50 seconds, so they would go off then. And we got several planes like that. I mean, you could, the only way you could tell that you had a plane was if you see a great big ball of fire, and then you knew you had him.
Now you set the fuses, right? That was your job?
Right.
And so we've got a 37-inch, 5-inch shell, and you're setting the fuse to determine how far it's going to fly before it goes off.
Is that right?
And a close proximity would probably destroy the plane of the explosion, or did it have to be a direct hit to the plane?
No, you wouldn't have to have a direct hit.
The concussion.
If you could get shrapnel,
right,
enough shrapnel in the air, and we figured if we moved the guns closer to where we fired them, that we could get 3 rounds a minute off. Now that's a whole lot.
That's right. I mean, one every 20 seconds.
Well, you don't think about that, but you got 4 guns in a battery firing, so that's 12 guns. that you putting shrapnel up there.
Yeah.
And that's a whole lot of shrapnel that you putting up there in the air.
Right.
And
So your islands that you went to, Tinian and Saipan and Marcus, what order did you take those? And tell me about the invasion. Tell me about your role there.
Well, now we hit Tinian first, and then they took us back to we hit Saipan. They took us back to Saipan because there were more Japs on there than they thought there was. So we hit Tinian, and then they took us back to Saipan to try to round up some more Japs. And we had one sentry there that caught this Jap. He tried to steal a Jeep, and the sentry caught him, and he said, "Now, if you let me go back up in the mountains, I'll bring 45 of my men down here, and we'll surrender to you." Now this is 16 months after they took the island. I mean, we were still hunting the Japanese then, and 16 months after that, he went back up to the mountains, and you could hear all this party going on that night, and the next morning he came down and he had 45 men, and he turned them in, and I took a picture of the guy turning his rifle over to our commanding officer. My mother gave me she gave me a camera and about 15 rolls of film. I took films all over the Pacific of old B-29s. They looked like they were in a junk pile, and they really were, because they just parked them anywhere they could park them.
Right. You were telling me that on the island of Tinian, that's where they flew the atomic bomb off.
That we were there when the atomic bomb left.
Okay.
Now,
Paul Tibbets flying the Enola Gay.
That's right. And to be stationed in a time that there were men smart enough to invent a bomb that would stop a world war.
Amazing.
And that's something.
Amazing.
That kind of floors me to think about that. But we went through a whole lot. There was about 130 of us, and we stayed together for about 3 years together. And those guys. You don't forget them. They're stuck there with you. They're there.
Did you lose any of those men?
We lost some of them. They got shrapnel. A lot of them got a lot of shrapnel. They were sent to the hospitals, and then a lot of the guys would hear from them where they would come back to the States in the hospitals, And of course, a lot of them, passed away too. And that's the thing about the war. You never know.
Right.
You never know. The guy right beside of you might get hit, and you never know.
You made a statement that you felt fortunate to be able to return home, and wonder why you returned home.
Well, you just
Yeah.
Sometimes you think, I was flipping through the TV one night, and Japan built a ship that couldn't be sunk. That was it. The United States got in there and sunk it. And when it was telling about that and the gunfire and all, you just wondered how you got back. Because I don't know, it was a mess.
Yes.
The whole thing. But
when we were talking to you earlier, James had asked you the question about how you felt about using the atomic bomb, and I thought your statement was good. It kept you from invading Japan.
Well,
you were all for it.
Now, well, I tell you, now we were on Tinian. We already had our shots and everything to invade Japan.
Yes.
So yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know whether I'd have been here or not if we'd
Exactly
invaded
right.
Japan, because they had 2,000 planes ready for us if we invaded Japan, you know. And they had things that they could go up and under ships, and one man could take that and blow completely a ship up, you know. So I don't know. It's just,
Yeah.
you just never know.
Yes.
You never know.
Yes. Now, I know you were on the island where the bomb was. Did you ever physically see the bomb until it was loaded, or?
Now we figured that it had to leave from the North Airstrip because it went out over the ocean. There was a mountain in behind us that a plane, they kept a searchlight on the mountain, and if that plane didn't have enough airspeed up, he would crash in our battery. I had a lot of pictures of the planes crashing, burning in our battery, you know. But so we figured he'd have to leave from the North Airstrip, because the North Airstrip went right straight out over the ocean. So if anything happened, then they would be, you know, pretty safe. But yeah, there was a bunch of us caught rides up at the North Airstrip to look at the bomb, but they had it covered up. They didn't want anybody to see that bomb. And there was about, golly, there was 6 to 8 Marines just standing around that thing guarding it, you know.
Right.
Well, now the guy that armed the bomb, they sent from Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and that's the first time he'd been up in an airplane.
Wow.
That was his first flight, you know. So I guess the crew was looking at him thinking, you know, does that idiot know what he's doing? Does he? But he must have really known, because they dropped the bomb. It was supposed to go off 2,000 feet above the ground and then explode, you know. That's where all the nuclear particles came from. And at 2,000 feet, it went off. I mean, it dropped 2,000 feet and then it exploded. So they knew that they knew exactly what they were doing. Now I did this book for my son. I thought maybe someday it would be worth something, you know.
That's right.
And he was in last weekend and wanted to take it, but she wanted to read it. Of course, she'll never read it now. But anyway, now this guy, I met him in Pigeon Forge in a campground, and he retired at Pigeon Forge, and they worked on the bomb there, but he didn't know. They didn't know what they were working on. They had no idea, and there was 31,000. Now these people that worked on this bomb, 31,000, that's a lot of people.
It is.
And they worked on the bomb and didn't know what they were working on.
Yeah.
Had no idea. Now there's the little boy.
Yeah.
Now, do you know how much it weighed?
I thought you told me 8,600
No,
pounds.
did I tell you?
Did it weigh 8,600 pounds?
Well, it weighed, it lacked 100 pounds being 10,000 pounds.
Oh, wow.
It weighed 9,800 and some pounds, a few odd pounds.
Right.
But it was
Is this the one they dropped on Hiroshima?
yeah. Now this is the one. Now
bit.
this is the one they dropped on. Well, I thought I had it here somewhere. I got this book all together for him, and it took a long time to get it everything kind of organized, because I had pictures of that bomb. The second one, it was. Now here's the guy that they caught, and he told them if they go back, he'd bring 45 men, and that's all of them lined up there, and that's him turning over his sword
Right.
to to our commanding officer. Well, there's the B-29s. I was fortunate I could take all these pictures. I shouldn't have, but I did. I took all. That's what we traveled on. This hit different islands, and now you don't know, but coming down a landing net with the M1 rifle with a full pack on. Now that's something, and a guy is keeping you away from the big ship. I mean, you're trying to land on in these pontoons that you go ashore on, you know, and he's keeping that thing away from that big ship. And those guys, they were good. I mean, they kept that, because if you fell in the ocean, you were gone, because you had a full field pack on, M1 rifle, and you just sunk. I mean, that was it. Well, I can't. I got all kind of. Now these are cemeteries on different. These are Japanese cemeteries on Saipan. Now here it is. Now this is the. Wait just a minute. Now this is the second bomb that was dropped, and see how much smaller it is than the big one. See how much smaller. It gets smaller all the time.
Right.